Hey, what's up, guys? This is Adam and Kevin coming back at you with another informative video. And we just kind of want to jump right into it. So we're going to be discussing power building, and basically what we think about it, what his current exercise science basically says about it, examining like these like basically like core principles, in order to make just to understand why it's probably not the best choice for long-term physique and strength development, because power building is like the holy grail, right? Everybody hears about it. Oh, I can gain muscle and get super strong. Like that's at the exact same time. And that sounds like the holy grail, which it is the holy grail. It's essentially what everybody wants, to be really fat and be really strong. However, there are problems with power building, and we're going to discuss why it's not the best way to go about trying to do both at the exact same time. And so I think, Kevin, could you just go a little bit more into that with like strength and hypertrophy training?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think where we should start this conversation, let's talk about what does strength training entail, and then what does hypertrophy training entail? Because while by going into the specifics of what training for each one includes, we'll be able to get a better understanding of why it's not a good idea to mix these two together into power building, right? So with strength training, that specific is going to entail one, training with percentage of your load that's close to your 1 rep max. Because obviously the goal here with powerlifting or strength training is to express your strength in that 1 rep max or 3 rep max, 5 rep max, whatever you're doing. So in training for that, your loads that you're primarily going to be using are going to be near the higher percentage range of your 1 rep max. So typically most of the volume they're going to be doing is going to be somewhere in the range of, say, 80% to 95%-ish. Most of what you're going to be doing, most of what you're going to be lifting is going to be found somewhere within that range. So again, very high intensities. While also training for strength, your volumes are going to typically be on the lower end of what you would typically see in most routines. So higher intensities, lower volume, as well as the fact that if you're trying to get stronger, specifically in this case with the squat, bench, and deadlift, you're probably also going to have a higher frequency on those lifts, right, compared to hypertrophy. So you're going to be probably squatting anywhere from 2 to 4 times a week, even anywhere from like 2 to 3 or even 4 times a week of benching, and then 1 to 2 times a week of deadlifting, typically on average between most people. So your frequencies on those 3 lifts are going to be pretty high, and most of your volume and most of the time spent in the gym is going to be training those 3 lifts and then some supplemental lifts with that. So on the flip side, with hypertrophy, that is going to entail one, lower intensities on average, because that's where we want to be able to accumulate most of our volume. So now anywhere between 60% to 85% of one rep max. So lower intensity as an average, which will allow us to then, number 2, do higher volumes than we would with strength training. So now we can up the volume because we're lowering the intensity, and we can accumulate more fatigue and more volume that way, which is going to lead to more muscle growth, which is the goal here with hypertrophy training. And also, with point number 3 of strength training, we're now not going to be doing the big 3 or squat, bench, and deadlift as frequently. So whereas in strength, we need to be training those frequently because strength is a neural skill. And for those neurological gains to come about, we need to be training that movement pattern more frequently. With hypertrophy, we're not constrained to just specific movements. You do not have to squat, bench, and deadlift, and you certainly do not have to do those as frequently at all. So the key thing here now is, okay, we understand what strength is and training for that. We understand what we need to train. We understand what we need to do to train for hypertrophy. Why should you not mix those two together? Isn't power building the holy grail? Well, if you pay attention, you notice that there's pretty striking differences between training for the two. Most notably, strength needing a higher intensity and lower volume on average, and then hypertrophy training needing higher volumes and lower-ish intensities on average.
Going off of that, just to explain to the listeners why that's the case, so basically our nervous systems, which are basically, they are what responsible for our muscles to contract and produce a force output. when you are using a higher intensities around that 80 to 95% of your 1 rep max, you're going to be fatiguing your nervous system more. Your nervous system has a longer recovery time than your skeletal, than your muscular system, and it's also it generally just needs more time to heal, and you can't express, like, it's very difficult to express that strength if you have too much volume, um, you know, that is basically contradictory to that goal. And then with the reason why we can do more volume with hypertrophy is because it's less demanding on the nervous system. It's placing more demands on the muscular system. So that's why we can then do more volume with hypertrophy.
Yep, exactly. So that is literally the reason why we don't advocate for power building. You're just mixing two different goals together and they don't really coincide. They're complete, no, I wouldn't say complete polar opposites, but they're not as well of a mesh as most people think.
If you have two circles in that little Venn diagram, there's a very, very small cross-sectional area between the two. The two similarities are basically progressive overload, mechanical tension, adding more weight to the barbell. Both, are very important for hypertrophy and strength adaptation. And to a certain point, exercise selection has a decent application with both of them. But besides that, that's basically where the similarities stop.
Yeah. And I mean, we're not saying here, I just want to give a little caveat before we continue on into like what you should do. We're not saying it doesn't work, right? Like it works. Is it the best thing you could do? No, as you can clearly see from what we've.
Like trying to run a marathon and juggle at the exact same time. It's just not efficient. You're going to run into problems. You're probably going to have to stop and reevaluate why you're doing this, why you're not making as much progress, and you're probably going to get fed up.
Yeah. All right. So I think now that the listeners have an idea of, okay, I get it. We shouldn't do this. What should I do instead? Let's talk about what you should do instead, right? Let's keep this short and sweet. So what should you do? Enter a wonderful term called phase potentiation. This is basically,
many guys know this as block periodization.
Yeah, known as like block periodization. It's just a fancy way of saying you're gonna focus on one goal at a time, and each goal that you focus on at a time during a block is gonna directly help improve the next block. To simplify things, we'll say, for the example, you want to power build, you want to get bigger, and you want to get stronger. Great. Well, we can use phase potentiation or block periodization to help solve this issue and get you there. You can start with, say, a hypertrophy block. In the hypertrophy block, you're going to be focusing primarily to increase muscle size. So rep ranges somewhere between 6 to 12 plus, preferably. You can dip below that slightly, but preferably we want lower intensity.
Higher, because we have some good reason to believe and evidence to support the fact that even the reps up to 30 have sufficient muscular recruitment to trigger a hypertrophic response with our myofibrils and sarcoplasm of the muscle.
Yeah. So I mean, really, like, hypertrophy can be done in a wide variety of rep ranges, as we know, anywhere from like 3 to 30, right?
The big thing here is you want to accumulate volume.
Yeah.
And the best way to accumulate volume is by doing higher reps and lower loads. So there's a reason why you hear 3 by 10, because that's a very, very good spot to be. 10 reps is a very, very easy way to accumulate volume over time.
Yeah, it's efficient, right? That's why you see most people doing it. You can gain the same hypertrophy with 3 sets of 10 and 10 sets of 3. But the 3 sets of 10 is going to be way more efficient at accumulating that volume than the 10 sets of 3, which is why you see most bodybuilders staying in that traditional 6 to 12 rep range, right? Because it's more efficient to accumulate volume there. So you want your reps to be preferably above 6 plus in a hypertrophy block. You want your volume in terms of sets to be somewhere in the range of, say, 10 to 20. If you are early on into this, preferably closer to 10. If you are more advanced, late intermediate to advanced, you can be closer to that 20-ish range. We're not going to go into specifics with this. We made a whole ass video about this. So go back and check that out for an hour of fun.
Yeah. And so basically the reason why this approach works so well is because we have these things called for like when we're moving from hypertrophy to a strength mesocycle. The reason why this works so well is because we have these things called motor neurons. And those are basically what can control your body's movements patterns. Like when I'm doing this, motor neurons, baby. So basically, when we are increasing the cross-sectional diameter of our muscles, we are getting more jacked, you're getting bigger arms, etc. You're essentially increasing the innervation of those muscles. And so this is a good thing because that means that we can recruit that muscle more efficiently to express its maximum force output via the neurons. This is why we say a bigger muscle has more potential to be a stronger muscle. It's because you have more motor neurons innervating the muscle fibers.
Yep, exactly. So like Adam alluded to, the reason we separate them into different phases is because one phase is directly going to help the next, hence phase potentiation. You're potentiating yourself for better gains in the next phase. When you're running a hypertrophy block, you're going to be gaining that bigger muscle cross-sectional area that's directly going to give you a bigger base, if you will, a bigger base to build potential strength off of. So when you get into the strength block, you're going to be in a better position to now have a greater potential for more strength gains. That's why if you just focus on only, I'm going to gain strength, and you purely are just strength training without any time spent in dedicated hypertrophy blocks, you're going to run into a wall eventually where you're going to basically just milk out all your neural gains. And then it's like, okay, I can't gain any more strength. What do? And it's like, well, let's build you a bigger base that you can actually gain more strength off of. So that's the whole basis of power building in its better sense with phase potentiation. You're just taking what power building is, but splitting it up to focus on one goal at a time in distinct phases. And by focusing on one goal at a time, you're able to fully devote all of your energy and resources towards that one goal. It's not going to interfere with the other goal. You're not going to have an interference effect going on. And by doing that, you're going to be able to potentiate yourself for better gains in each phase. Is there anything else that you want to continue off with that?
I want to do an anecdote because for my first couple years, actually, of training, I was in that power building camp. I did focus mainly on power building, and I did have more of that style of approach with my training, and it worked well very immediately. And like this is something that a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, it worked well for me." I'm like, "Well, yeah, but how for how long?" I'm looking back on my progress, and even though it was very, very good, I had a period of time where I wasn't really making that much progress, and that was mainly just due to the fact that there's a principle called directed adaptation and adaptive resistance. Basically, the more often that you ask your body to do something, you have the same stimulus, our bodies are going to adapt because we want to survive. And if we are better adapted to the surroundings, to the demands that are placed on our bodies, your body's not really going to want to make that adaptation. And that's an issue when we're trying to get bigger and stronger because we want to help promote those adaptations. And so switching from a power building approach to a block periodized approach, a lot of people have issues with that mentally because it's really power building is really fun. It is super fun. You come in, you do a heavy single, and you have a 10 by, and then you have like a 3 by 10. That's really fun because you get to lift heavy and you get to lift, and you get a really awesome pump. However, for all the reasons that we just said, that's just not the best way to go about a long-term progress because you will run into a wall. And that's the same thing with block periodization. If you just do like hypertrophy mesocycle without strength, your body's ability to actually, get a pump, or you're going to see more of that hypertrophy is going to be just diminished because your body is so used to that stimulus you're giving it. By switching things up, you're basically presenting your body with novel stimuli for a period of time. And and the reason why we do this and why we develop, basically for each of these phases, you need to have at least about 3 weeks to see any sort of directed adaptation response. For adaptive resistance to kick in for each of the stages, it depends, highly dependent on the individual, on how advanced they are. But as a general rule of thumb, like I like to spend anywhere from 2 to 4 months in a hypertrophy block. I like capping strength meals at like 2 months. I prefer that simply just because there's only so much you can do to express your strength, and due to increased frequency on lifts, you're going to be able to practice them more, get better at them faster. There's really not much point, and you're going to run into issues with that. So power building does work like anything, but it's for a very, very short amount of time. And anybody who makes that choice to do a power building program is basically going to have to be conscious of that trade-off in long-term optimality for what you can sustain and what you really do enjoy. If you really love coming into the gym and doing power building, that's what keeps you active, and that's what keeps you, coming back for more. Like, we aren't saying you will not see progress with power building. You will. It will just be slower. And so you need to ask yourself a question, am I doing this more for just for fun? Am I training for fun? Because if that's the case, you don't need to worry about all this stuff. Do whatever the heck you want to do. But if you're really interested in really maximizing your progress, like most of our listeners who are going to even be taking the time or to be in this point in the video are, it makes sense to devote these stages. And there's nothing more fun than seeing progress. I thoroughly just 100% believe that if you're not making progress, if you're seeing things slow down, that's the most frustrating thing, and it can become very, very disheartening. With this approach, you're basically able to milk the gains as best as possible from each of the stages, really focus your time and your energy on getting this done, and doing it the most optimally. A lot of people will kind of be like, they'll try to do like 1 rep maxes in hypertrophy or whatever, and sometimes people are just like, they're obviously outliers. I'm one of them. I can still express it okay, but basically because you're not training that quality, your ability to express strength is not going to be as heightened. Well, that's okay, because your goal isn't to get as strong as possible. You want to get more jacked, and then once you kind of get into that strength phase, you can really take advantage of those gains that you just potentiate yourself for, and get super, super strong. So it's really, when you're making this choice between should I do power building or should I do block periodization, it's a question of, do I want the most progress possible? Is that really what I want? Or am I more just doing this for fun? Because we will program for clients power building programs because they just really like that style of training. And while we may be like, okay, that's probably not the best, this is what the client wants, this is what keeps them consistent, having a healthy lifestyle, whatever, absolutely, go for it.
Yep. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, we always want to meet the client where they're at.
Not like power building. I really want to make that clear. But if somebody asks us, what do you think about power building? You will say it's not the best long term. And anything works short term. Anybody can make gains in the short term. It's about making progress long term. That's how you get jacked. That's how you get really strong. Nobody gets jacked in 3 weeks. I wish it was the case.
Yeah, if only. I mean, could not agree more. Yeah. This is why it's important to have if you're looking for optimality here, which I'm assuming you are if you're at this point in the video, it's important to have a pretty full like macro cycle plan for yourself, right? In terms of like how long and this is where we can also go into specifics of like, if you like power building and you're okay, I'm gonna do phase potentiation, but you're also like, I'm more biased on the strength side, but I want to also gain muscle and be jacked. You can then skew the phases in your favor of what you prefer, right? So if you are more strength oriented and you care more about your squat, bench, and deadlift 1 rep max than you do just being jacked, in that case, you could skew the phases so where, let's say you're doing 2 to 3 strength mesocycles and then 1 to 2 hypertrophy mesocycles. So you could either do like 2 strength, 2 hypertrophy mesocycles. So a block of hypertrophy being 2 mesocycles of that, and then a block of strength being 2 mesocycles of that. That would be an even trade-off between the two. Or you could do something where you have, say, 3 mesocycles of strength. I typically wouldn't even do that for a strength-focused trainee, but it is something you can implement, especially if you're more on the advanced side of things or late intermediate, where there's only so much muscle you can really gain in a year at that point. It might also be worth, if you're focused on strength, to just do 3 strength mesocycles and then 2 hypertrophy. And then on the flip side of that, if you are more focused on getting jacked and getting bigger, but you also still care a bit about your strength, you can just do the flip side of that. Do 3 hypertrophy mesocycles, focus on hypertrophy for a longer period of time.
Strength.
Yeah, and then do strength after that for like 1 to 2 mesocycles.
And again, just want to really make this clear. By switching between the phases, you're basically giving it, like, your body is just like, okay, sick, we can actually keep making progress, because you're not doing the same thing all the time. Again, physiology, we want to adapt to the demands that we're placing on our body. In this way, we can make sure that we are continuing to, because adaptation will always, and this is why, like, you know, like, we do have like caps on these phases, because like, if you do it for, again, you kind of run into the exact same problems with power building, in terms of, it's not going to work the best. You're just going to be kind of spinning your wheels. Also, by lowering volumes and going into, you know, strength phases, you're going to be basically resensitizing yourself to the higher volumes, to the lower intensities, and then once you come back to it, your body's gonna be like, wow, thank you, this feels really, really, really nice after I just was training my joints super hard and my nervous system. This is kind of nice to have. Oh, my pumps are way better. It makes training more fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, could not agree more. You need to give your body a chance to, like, you actually want your body to desensitize a bit to that other stimulus and resensitize, so you can go back and make better gains in it. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So
basically, really, long story short, we recommend block periodization. That's what we use with most of our clients. Power building works, but it does have its limitations, and we'll eventually run into problems. But we get this question all the time. We just kind of wanted to make this video talking very specifically about what the problems are, and then giving you a good solution to the problems with power building. So I think that's really it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks to everybody who took the time to watch. We appreciate you guys. And Kevin and I do offer coaching and custom programming, so reach out to either one of us if you're interested. We also will be launching a programming mentorship course very, very soon for hypertrophy, for those who are interested. So make sure to be on the lookout for that. If you really want to learn the nitty-gritty details about how exactly to do this and how we approach it, basically become your own coach, and really you can understand the why behind your training a lot more. Just based on, Kevin and I are both in graduate programs right now, so we walk the walk, we talk the talk. So if you guys are interested in that, make sure to keep on the lookout. We'll keep you updated. Follow our social media. It'll be in the description box below. Anything to say, Kevin?
No, that's it.
All right, guys. Have a good one.